Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Big Thing. This is an exciting one. Look, we know that No Way Home, it's coming out, and it's coming out at the end of the year. And there's so many rumors about what the hell we're going to see inside of it. And if you've been watching Sith Council and listening to the rewatches we've done of the live-action movies, we started talking about it, and we're like, let's do a rewatch of all the Spider-Man movies. That'll be a lot of fun in all of them because it's all relevant, which is crazy. We didn't think it would be relevant. Oh, you just have to watch the MCU ones. No, it could all be relevant. And I was like, I am the Spider-Man expert, right? No. But I like them. I like them a lot. And what I decided to do was I got to get some Spider-Man experts. Who better than my buddy Winston A. Marshall, Coy and Winston. We're going to be talking about Spider-Man. Right today, we're talking about Sam Raimi's, the 2002 one. It's going to be a blast. I can't wait. Let's get talking about it, ladies and gentlemen. Come on. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is The Big Thing. And I am Kristian Harloff. It's nice to see you here on The Big Thing. And I am joined today for the rewatch with my good buddy, Coy and Winston. Hey, Marshall, I didn't get a chance to put the damn thing in. They made it for me. They made it for me. And I didn't do it.
That's all good, man.
I'll do it next time, I promise.
I appreciate you.
What's
now you have it on
for?
file for awesome. But
awesome? Winston Awesome Marshall. I get it. Extra X.
Alexander.
Most
anybody that I'm close to calls me either Alex or Amar. So Winston was just a industry thing because there's already an Alex Marshall in the industry. So yeah.
Right.
Alex Marshall Brown? Do you know Alex Marshall Brown?
I do not know Alex Marshall
She's a
Brown.
homie. She's a stunning girl. She's fantastic.
Wow, okay.
But I was like, wait a second. Do I know
So this is
the
all
other
her
one?
fault.
Yeah, so I'm just blaming my homie.
I
that.
tricked you all that the entire episode is going to be about just
Spider-Man or just name?
About my middle name.
She comes
That's
in.
it.
I'm like,
Your middle
and
name.
Alex is here.
No, this is going to be a lot of fun, though, because for those of you, once again, that have been listening to Sith Council and paying attention to what we've been doing, it's been a really kind of popular thing with you guys. We've been going over it, rewatching it, but we've also been tying back, like, how it could fit into the series. And now, with the shit going down in the MCU, it's like, how is this going to tie in? And look, this is what I'm going to say about the Raimi trilogy movies in general. I'm a Sam Raimi guy, right? I think he's what I like about him through The Evil Dead. He does have a bit of cheese in the way that he shoots things. It's fun cheese, but it's cheese. Even my good friend Bonnie Somerville, who's in Spider-Man 2, when for some reason she's just there and she runs into the camera and goes, ah! It's such like a B-movie type of thing. It works.
Yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes. And there is a lot of that in this movie.
Yeah.
In all of them.
In all of them. But in this one in
accelerate.
particular, there's some stuff. I mean, I love Willem Dafoe.
Yeah.
Love him.
It's great.
There is some laugh out loud shit in some of the stuff that he does.
The gasp as the pumpkin glider, the glider comes in. That moment, I was like, "Did they really?" When they,
no,
and then guys,
and there's no way that costume gets greenlit today.
No,
absolutely
that
not.
Power Ranger
way.
suit does
No.
not see the light of day.
But I think that's part of it, though, is like, if you remember the other superhero movies coming out at the time, obviously you got Blade, but that's a whole other can of worms.
Different.
Is just X-Men. Before that, it's Batman and Robin and Batman Forever.
Right, and the original Superman and everything too, right?
So specifically, I was just thinking in my mind, I was like, what, Batman Forever was what, 96?
Batman Forever?
Forever?
Was that the last?
You're talking about Batman and Robin.
Batman Forever. I know Robin was later.
95.
95.
Batman and Robin's 98, I think.
98, right. So we're only like
4
years removed from
Right.
that. And it's the same kind of camp, you know?
It
It's
is.
actually 3 because
well,
they'd be filming it. Because think about it, like, it released in 02 means they filmed it in 01. So
they filmed it in 01. They had to change stuff up because remember in the towers they had the towers inside of the original trailer, but it had the same kind of hype that Batman 89 did because Spider-Man, they were trying to get a Spider-Man movie made for a while. James Cameron was working on a Spider-Man.
Script is rough. You ever read it?
No, it is really
cartoonish because it was written for Arnold to be Doc Ock, but it's written in Arnold's voice.
Oh, wow.
So you're reading this like Doc Ock, you hear the Arnold, and it's just so laughable. And for some reason, Peter Parker is like really horny. Like it's all the web fluid stuff is very metaphorical.
Come here,
like,
you horny bastard. I got something for you.
that's the James Cameron
Do you
script.
see my arms? They go in the left and
He
they go
has
in,
read it. This is the
going, right?
experience.
And it's unbelievable. Today, I will be a Terminator, but with a lot of arms. And you swing around the trees with your stuff. Go
And
ahead.
I'm not kidding. Peter Parker gets bit by the spider, and so does Doc Ock. Read the script.
See,
It doesn't
no,
make any
thank
sense.
you.
Dude, it's that insane.
Well, nonetheless, it didn't get approved. I remember being in New York reading in like Entertainment Weekly or something about this script. I'm like, when are they going to do Spider-Man? Because the only other Spider-Man, which I'm sure you know about, is this. It was like. Was it a Japanese?
Yes.
Well, it was
amazing.
Japanese. It's really fun.
It's
no
the
pun intended.
best. No, I know.
We're gonna have a lot of those today.
Bro, like the fact that like they don't have web, all of a sudden he just randomly has like a rope that he just uses to swing around and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like it is the most ridiculous, but it's so much fun to watch. Have you seen?
Oh yeah,
Right.
it's
And
actually canon in the comics now.
Yes.
Really?
And
Because
then-
of the Spider-Verse.
Wow. And
Yes, it
remember
is.
Electron and what was it? The Electra Company used to have Spider-Man. Well, that was the only way
Morgan Freeman narrating Spider-Man.
Is that what it
half of
was?
you guys. Yeah.
Okay,
She was
so-
from the Electric Company.
So that was the way that we had Spider-Man. Right. So when this movie came out, there was a lot of hype. And remember, this movie made $115 million opening weekend. I was driving back from Vegas when I heard that number, and I remember going, wow, that is amazing, that number. That was the that was the biggest number like ever opening week. They even played in Entourage. They talk about how they were trying to aim for like Aquaman's trying to beat it.
We squished the spider. I remember.
Yep.
Yeah,
And James Cameron directed it for a reason because they were referencing that script. That god-awful script.
That's absolutely right. So 115 it makes. It makes $150 million. That's a big, massive number, and it's a huge hit. Tobey Maguire in this movie. And you had mentioned like it's got a lot of the cheese of like the Schumacher, that Batman series, his Batman series, I think comes in at a cheese level of like 97%. This movie, I think is at like 45. It's got a lot of cheese.
I put it at least at a D. It's at like 60%
You think
cheese.
60% cheese?
Because I honestly was watching it this morning. I've just been so much stuff going on that I was like, all right, let me sit down and just like sit through it. And
are you not a fan of it?
Not anymore.
Yeah.
It still has a place in my heart because I remember when it came out and I remember how obsessed I was with it and whatnot.
Yeah.
But like the fact that it opens with like, do you want to hear my story? I don't know. It's not for the faint of heart. And I'm like, that's how you open the my God.
Now is that
Spider-Man?
But this is a great point though, because you look at the way, and I think Nolan changed a lot of this stuff, right?
Yes.
And Nolan taken
And Favreau.
Favreau, after Nolan, of course, but like Nolan had made, well, no. We're going to take Batman and the realism, the real side of it, and then we're going to make it like, this is like cinema.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then other movies, like, say what you want about Infinity War and all these movies, and even though there's a lot of humor in it, there's a lot, like the Tony Stark stuff still, that'll
Yeah,
eat
people
you up.
crap in the MCU, but then they're like, I love the Sam Raimi trilogy. I'm like, go back and rewatch them. Because the
Right.
things you don't like about the MCU were definitely the fabric of
100%.
the Sam Raimi movies. Because I rewatched it yesterday thinking about how this would be received today. Not the legacy, not the foundation,
Today.
not any of those things.
Right.
And I think that I definitely have a lot of warm fuzzies because I was 14 when it came out.
Yeah.
I saw it in theaters. I lost my mind. He's my guy. Seeing posters around, seeing Spider-Man posters was like, that lead up was almost part of the event. So I can't remove that experience, like you're saying, the nostalgia.
Exactly.
But watching it objectively,
Yes.
I don't think it would do well today.
At all.
Yes.
And
well,
I'm curious about Doctor Strange now because of it.
Well, I mean, well, but here's the thing, and I'll be honest. When I heard that Sam Raimi was pegged to direct this movie, I said the same thing you did. I was like, I don't know if it works today.
We had that whole debate, I remember, on
did.
SCN.
We did.
We talked about it for a minute, and I was like, this sounds awful.
But
Check that episode, linked above.
But here's the thing, though, too. He's also done a lot of things. He's produced a lot of other things and to be fair to him, that he also had a pretty big playground to play in 2001. Right. Because there was no comparison, and the difference. You look at someone like Edgar Wright.
Yeah.
Right? Edgar Wright was signed on to do Ant-Man before the MCU was a thing. He had his own movie. He was signed in, and then once they started developing the MCU, like, well, it's Edgar Wright. Let's say, and he's like, yeah, but that's not what I want to do. Like, well, we have a direction now,
Right?
And he's like, but I don't want to do that,
Right?
And so he left,
Right.
And Raimi didn't come on and go. It's one of the reasons he left the third one, because they wanted to do all this stuff with it. But the MCU, they're like, dude, we got a plan.
Yeah, but the irony is that he left a movie where they had so much studio interference.
Right.
And Scott Derrickson left because, he had other things.
Yes.
And potentially that. And now we have Sam Raimi coming in and doing basically Avengers 5.
But I think
Like, that movie's going to be the most studio impacted movie of any of them because it has to conclude WandaVision. Like, he's literally writing and directing the movie that closes a lot of doors that just got opened with Phase 4. It has to.
I've come around, though, on him directing it. Yeah, come around on it.
I'm still a little worried.
More. Yeah, I'm worried.
Okay,
but
because rewatching this one, I really enjoyed the fact that it was by itself. That was my favorite thing about watching this one. I wasn't going like, I wonder if that woman giving the lecture is going to be blankety blank. Am I looking for Easter eggs? Instead, I was like, what a movie! Like, it was nice.
Well, the funny thing is I got caught in my own trap where we're always trying to find that stuff.
Yeah.
So like when he gets bit by the spider in this one at the beginning, they're talking about all the different spiders and what they can do. And Peter goes, oh, did you know that some spiders can camouflage? And I'm like, is that a Miles reference? And I'm like, wait, Miles wasn't invented yet.
Right. Yeah.
Miles only dropped in 2011. So I was like.
So maybe Miles was inspired by that scene.
I thought about that. I was like, maybe that's what actually ended up happening.
By the way, what's the actor, the teacher? By the way, I remember him.
Oh, that black dude.
I remember
that weird growl voice. But
he's like he's so serious. And like, but I remember in the theater thinking, he's like, we're gonna have a talk about why people why we should listen. I'm like, take it easy, guy.
The delivery is so specific and strange.
He's just so like, we're gonna have a conversation, and you never see him again. They're like, dude, that guy, he was supposed to be smiling.
Well,
instead, we cast Tony Todd's brother, and he's very intense.
He's so intense.
That's why I love the fact that they almost did like its own kind of like Spider-Verse version of getting JB Smoove for like the newer.
Yeah. He was great. He was great.
He's amazing.
He's really good in that one. Like, so that's the type of humor to me that kind of worked. But I will say this about the movie, because I was going into it remembering, because I've said it, the fans have given me shit about it. I think that basically what we've just been saying here is that people always talk about how they think Spider-Man 2 is like the greatest Spider-Man movie. I don't feel that way.
A lot of people keep saying that's the best superhero movie, and I'm like,
so I'm gonna go. I mean, I'm looking forward to
really thick glasses that are rose-colored, real thick rose-colored glasses.
I'm looking forward to watching it again, because what I will say is, going back to watch the first one, I'm going, all right, well, there's a lot of cheese, and there is.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun watching this movie this time around, and I don't know if it was the same thing like when I talked about the Clone Wars and how I watched Clone Wars a little differently, and my daughter wanted to watch a Spider-Man movie, and so I took out the first Tom Holland one, and she sees the box and she goes, "But Iron Man's on this," and I'm like, yeah. She's like, "But he's already Spider-Man." She's like, "I want to see how he becomes Spider-Man." I go, "Well, I haven't done that with this one." She's like, "I don't want to watch that one." And so I was like, okay, well, what about? And I was like, I'm thinking to myself, my God, isn't that the Garfield one? So I show her this one. She's like, let's watch that one. And there was some stuff in it like that. She was like, she didn't like I just have a good kid, and like she did not like when Norman Osborn died.
Yeah,
because the first thing she said, she's like, but that's Harry's dad.
Oh,
and
good kid.
She's just a good kid,
yeah.
Right? And but watching the whole thing, you know, and I was like, yeah, but he's a bad man. She's like, and again, scumbag I am. I'm like, he's a bad man. She's like, but he didn't deserve to die. And I'm like, oh my God.
Damn.
I'm like, my kid. So
your wife must be the nicest, because this doesn't track. This doesn't. How did this happen?
I have no idea. I was telling him the other day, like just off the course, where we were talking, and I mentioned this with Josh and Roxy. It was National Daughters Day last week, and so she goes, so my daughter, it's like, honey, it's National Daughters Day. She goes, shouldn't it just be Women's Day? She's like, everybody's a daughter. And I'm like,
what an incredible
dude,
kid.
she's brilliant, right? Bro.
Write a book. Get her on a book. Get her on a
she's
book
already writing a book, dude.
There it is.
This is most kids are like, hey, can I do this? Can I watch TV? She's like, can I write my book? I'm like, yes.
Dad, I'm busy. I've got pages
I'm like,
due.
tell me when you get your deal so I can just retire. I'm just gonna retire.
So my interesting take rewatching it was that I really enjoyed it. It was a B+ for me on rewatch.
Right.
Like I tried to be objective. I tried to remove myself from it, but I really found myself enjoying the texture of it, in that we don't have movies that feel complete or resolved or like tangible film anymore.
Yeah.
It felt like a movie. Like
did.
the actors felt like they were in their own universe. Everything, having Strom in there and not having set up stuff.
Right.
That brief exoskeleton moment.
There was no story expectations.
Exactly.
There was box office expectations.
Yeah,
but
it was a summer blockbuster,
Right,
but that
right.
was it. So like the exoskeleton scene, my brain was like, it's gonna be Spider Slayers, and it could have been, but it didn't have to be then. And it's kind of nice to go back to a time when that can be the movie, and that's what I hope DC does.
Well,
I'd like if DC started making movies that were like, it could connect, it might not, and that's what I feel like they're edging towards.
Sure.
And this felt like a bygone era of like, that finished, and I'm happy with it.
Right. Well, you know what I think that Raimi did also is that Raimi was able to do his version of Spider-Man where you're not going to be able to get away with that today. Because, like, for example, this Spider-Man is not the Spider-Man we know. This is a mutant. This is a mutant. He shoots spider webs out of his arm. Again, referencing my daughter, and I was like, yeah, honey, he can't do that in the other ones. He builds them. She's like, well, he should just, if he's a spider, he should have it in his arms.
That's not where it come out of, kid.
That's not how it works, child.
That's not how
also,
it works.
it gets rid of the science and ingenuity. I hated that.
That's
I hate
the
that.
one thing I hated about
we
that.
literally had
That's
him.
what I said.
He had the photography that didn't feel as impactful. No. I did enjoy that it's a love letter to New York. That's been missing harshly since. I really love that Spider-Man and New York are like the same thing. Like, to me, that's such a part of the character. And they touched on that in Homecoming, but they didn't really live in it. And then his lack of scientific prowess, once he leaves school, it's like, welp. And like, that's Peter Parker. Right. But without the webbing, like, you don't have is he going to run out? Is it this? Is it that? And that's a huge part of the character to me.
1,000%. I think that was something that always was a big turnoff, because one of the things, and what I love specifically about like Far From Home, that last moment where he does that feeling that he's kind of becoming the new Tony, that ingenuity that's there is what makes him special. It's not the spider powers, it's none of. It's literally that he is on par with Reed and Tony and Shuri and all that. Like, he's maybe not right up there, but he's pretty.
He's in the conversation.
Yeah. No, I agree. I like my personal favorite Spider-Man is Holland. I mean, I think because I think they're all great actors. I think they all did a fantastic job. I just think that everything that I remembered as Spider-Man is everything you guys are talking about, and I think that they captured that inside of it. However, what I'll say about this, what I really liked is the relationship between Peter and Ben in this. Because
you need that.
What an amazing performance as the uncle, because that was, to me, like, it's devastating. Like when he goes in there and he sees the guy come out, and you know the whole story. If you're a Spider-Man fan, you watch it, and he's laying there after they had this conversation, because you think about it all the time, like arguments you get into, people, you say something you don't mean, and then God forbid something happens. It's the last thing you say.
Yeah.
Like, you always think about that kind of stuff.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up, because I agree with you. That was a moment that really brought me in. I think the flip side of it was me thinking, and this is just me getting older now. So he gets scammed by a dude, right? He only gets the $100. He doesn't get the 3,000 he's supposed to get. Dude comes in with a gun, steals the money, starts running towards him. He's like, "You could have stopped that guy." I was like, "Bitch, first of all, you paid me less than a fraction of what you promised me. Second of all, this motherfucker had a gun. Why the fuck am I going to? Oh yeah, no, stop, dog. Don't take all that money from the asshole. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
No one knows that he has.
He could have torn him apart.
No, bitch. He could have put the gun in my mouth, and that would have been the end of it. Like, it's not
right. Well, I mean, he could have dodged it.
I mean,
but the wrestling announcer
doesn't know that. He doesn't know that.
That's true. Well, I mean, but I do like that scene, and what I liked about what Tobey Maguire did is Tobey Maguire played a bit of a, like, always had a dark side inside of it, because even in that moment, right, where
he relishes in it. There's a moment of like anger, deserved.
Like, it goes a little too far in the third one when he's dancing on pianos, but we'll get to that. We'll get to choice. We'll get to it eventually. But in this one, I thought it was a good balance, right? And I thought there were those kind of moments where even when he's like, "Come on, Gobby," and he does it, it's like that. It was cartoony. There was a lot of Saturday morning cartoon stuff into it that I was cool with this ride around, because I think the fact that I know that you're going to see some of this tie-in, I'm very curious of how Raimi's Spider-Man, and then the other Garfield, and I wonder how it's all going to play in and how this tone is going to play.
I talked about this on Real Rejects, where I think that the tone of the different Spider-Mans might be the hardest thing for them to capture, much like Endgame and Infinity War, where they're bringing in 20 different tones into one movie, and they did an amazing job. I don't know, however, if audiences are going to be ready for realizing just how different tonally Andrew Garfield is, realizing just how different tonally Tobey Maguire is, because you're going to see it so much clearer when they're next to each other, if they're playing it authentically. That
was the one thing that always kind of kicked in for me, to be honest with you. While I agree that Holland is my favorite Spider-Man, it's because I thought that you kind of had the idea where Tobey understood the assignment as far as Peter Parker, but I don't think did very well as Spider-Man, as far as just totally, because Spider-Man is always so, he's running his mouth and doing all that kind of stuff.
You see it in spurts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think Garfield was the best in-suit Spider-Man.
He was pretty great.
I agree. So like, so that's why I love Holland so much, is because you get that nerdy side of Peter Parker so much better, because I feel like Garfield's Peter Parker is too cool for school, and he needs to kind of be like for him, he puts the mask on, the confidence comes
right.
out.
He can say the things he wants to say off, and that's what Garfield almost captured, but like you said, the skateboarding scene and stuff, like, and we'll talk about that when we get there, but I think rewatching Spider-Man 1, Toby actually is my least favorite either Peter Parker or Spider-Man.
Okay.
Because I feel like his Peter Parker
It's too
isn't
much.
likable and his Spider-Man isn't necessarily different enough. Whereas
Right.
Andrew Garfield is too likable and then his Spider-Man is awesome. And then Tom Holland has the best balance of both, but it's still not
I think
quite,
you're right.
you know what I mean?
I think that one of the main things that I can agree with on that is that his motivation is, I mean, and that's the point of Spider-Man, right? At first was, as Ben tells him, was great power, great responsibility. But all of his motivation, and as a teenage boy would do, is a girl.
Yeah.
The whole thing is all about Mary Jane. So, or not Mary Jane. Mary Jane.
Mary Jane,
So I was like, Gwen, Mary Jane, who's but Mary Jane.
Don't worry, the studio heads did that too.
Yes, and Kirsten Dunst. Yeah, and that, which is interesting too, because it's Gwen that he's with when he's younger, and it's Mary Jane later, and they switched. It's another thing that they switched up in the
And the
Raimi
bridge
stuff.
sequence and everything else, like
Which
they
one?
tied the bridge is so tied to Gwen,
Oh,
and
right,
they made that
right,
Kirsten's
right.
Mary Jane.
Right.
They also the Goblin is tied to Gwen. What's interesting is Fincher wanted to make a Spider-Man movie about the night Gwen Stacy died for the first movie. It was after Cameron passed, it became a Fincher vehicle, and he was going to do the opening credits, tell the whole origin, and then the night Gwen Stacy died was his story because David Fincher's a dark bleep.
Right.
I don't know if we can swear on the show. So David Fincher.
Winston already.
I have already opened that door.
Winston did them all for us.
Fincher's a dark motherfucker. Like Fincher being who he is going to make that movie. So they were actually going to do a throw Gwen off and make that Spider-Man's origin through the Fincher power.
Right.
And then I think they kept some of that. I think that like maybe they had some storyboards
Go
and
ahead,
shit.
Izzy.
I think it's a mix of we've already talked about how the cheese is kind of there. They can go dark, but they're not going to go that dark.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I think the other part of it too is, if you remember, obviously we're just coming off of the 90s with X-Men the animated series, Spider-Man the animated series, and how popular those were, hence why they kind of got greenlit straight into films.
Yes.
We were following him with Mary Jane.
Yeah.
And so I think that if you're connecting the dots for those kids that maybe didn't necessarily grow up on the comics, they grew up on the animated series, then got into the they may not know who Gwen Stacy is properly.
That's fair.
So you jump right into Mary Jane.
But besides that, though, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, and that is that there were no story expectations at the time, and there was no way to do comic book movies. People forget of when you had Iron Man, and now that everything kind of connects into it, and you got, oh, well, that's the way it was, and you put things together, and you still play around with stuff, but for the most part, you stick to what the lore is, right?
Right.
Back then, in 2001, there wasn't the big boom. X-Men, sure. Blade, sure. Spider-Man, but it wasn't the big boom that it is now with comic movies and the business that it was. It was like, oh, this could be something really huge. What's really cool? Well, what if you could see the meeting? What if this time it's not Gwen Stacy? No one's going to care. We'll make it Mary Jane instead. And then the bridge thing, that's a lot of fun. Well, we'll put her in that situation. This thing. And what if he shoots webs? It's not a thing that he makes this time. It's this.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, who cares? They're not going to. It's not. There was no Twitter. There was no Twitter, so there wasn't.
That's a long fan letter. You got to mail it in.
You do that thing today?
Oh,
Twitter shut you down.
What's
boy.
crazy is they actually built and shot web shooter shots. You can actually see Tobey Maguire with web shooters in some frames.
Oh, wow.
Like there's actually Tobey Maguire web shooters. So that was decided that late on. They actually filmed with him with a web shooter. Wow. So it was a last minute decision, and that changed the whole lore. But what I think is most interesting is so to defend the Tobey, now that I've said my piece that's going to get me hate in the comments, I think the Tobey Spider-Man has the best world. I think the supporting cast, I think the environment, I think the love of New York, Tobey's is the best. I think.
I don't want to interrupt you, but your coffee is condensating under your phone.
I appreciate you. As I had my first phone swim 2 months ago, I appreciate you. So I think Tobey has the best world. Yeah. I think Garfield has the best Spider-Man. I think Holland has the best Peter. And I think that's why each of them feels so different. Is it evolves
and why it'll be
into
so interesting to see them all together.
And I therefore think that we're gonna have some really interesting moments when people are gonna realize that Tobey, I think, doesn't quite land like people remember he does. Because he's Molly's game, dude. Like, he's an intense dude. He's a scary guy. Like, you don't talk to Tobey Maguire in the street.
Right.
So, like, I don't think that translates when you've got a real Spider-Man on screen. No disrespect to Tobey. Don't hunt me down. I'm scared.
I know what you're saying, though. But I think that if you look at the Harry Osborn stuff and all of that, I mean, I think there's a lot of great stuff that happens in this movie. Like, you know, the way that they're both born at the same time, very similar, kind of like the Vader and when the twins are born and then Vader's born. This is the same thing that happens in this movie. And speaking of Star Wars, that this movie was the movie, Matrix was the movie that came out that overshadowed Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is the movie that overshadowed Attack of the Clones. Because Attack of the Clones, everybody was talking about, okay, here comes this relationship now with Padme and Anakin. It's like wooden and terrible, like no chemistry, even though they were dating in real life. Yeah. And then you get Dunst and Maguire light up the screen together.
one best kiss. All anybody was ever talking about.
I mean, that
Everybody
kiss is
trying to-
iconic.
Well, everybody was
is.
trying to replicate it. The fact that it was such a big deal, that became a story point in the second movie to be like, let me see if I actually still feel something for baby Jameson, and I don't.
Right.
Because you're not Spider-Man. You know?
And I love that they set up the Harry Osborn, Mary Jane thing like the comics in the Silver Age, but so that's straight from the comic books. In the comic books, Gwen Stacy, MJ, Harry, they all like double date. So once they're in college, the four of them are like the party kids. So he grows up, and the reason he falls for Gwen is she's also a science girl. She's intelligent. She's that girl. So that bond.
So Harry falls for Gwen, you're saying?
No. Sorry. Peter falls for Gwen because of science. Like they fall in love intelligently, which is what I love about the character.
Yeah.
And she happens to be a stunner and the daughter of a police chief. And then Mary Jane only self-actualizes when Gwen dies. She becomes a better person once Gwen's lost. She actually stops partying, but she's dating Harry at the time. But she sees what Gwen was and tries to be a better person because of Gwen.
Because of that. So
without
I have
that,
two questions for you, because you know this stuff like probably the back of your hand. All right. So first of all, Elizabeth Banks plays Gwen Stacy.
Elizabeth Banks plays Betty Brant.
Betty Brant,
which is his first crush in Amazing Spider-Man 2.
It's,
so that's...
Oh, God, who is it? I just went over this.
Jesus Christ. Bryce Dallas Howard plays Gwen Stacy in Spider-Man 3.
There it is.
They dyed a redhead blonde and a blonde red. It's a choice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that was the
Hasn't
first
bothered
one.
me
I
for
can't remember
decades.
the second question I had, but that was the first one because and the other question I had was what I thought was an interesting choice, and maybe it's part. Also, does Mary Jane come from a bad family in the comics? Okay.
And that's a
They
big
played
part
on
of why she's a party girl. And that dichotomy is what's great about the characters. But without Gwen, I feel like you don't get the dichotomy. You just feel like, oh, Mary Jane's interesting-ish. And they hint at that with Harry. They hint at like the party stuff. But we didn't get the time to breathe. But again, this is a unprecedented film. We don't do this stuff yet.
And introducing Joe Manganiello, who comes in as Flash.
Who I wanted to play Craven, because how ironic would that be if he came back as Craven, right?
Yeah.
Because it would have been like another
wild.
Spidey cast.
That would have been wild.
Well,
dude.
so does he? And in the comics, who is he dating? Mary Jane or Gwen?
In the comics, he doesn't really date anyone, but he's like got a thing for MJ sometimes, but only because she's hot. Like
and he eventually plays into the whole Venom story.
Yeah, he eventually becomes of Venom.
See, I know some shit.
Yeah, he joins the military because he loves Spider-Man. So he hates Peter, loves Spider-Man. It's a beautiful dichotomy.
Right.
But he joins the military to be more like his hero, Spider-Man, and he loses his legs, and then the military lobotomizes Venom and makes him into a suit where he has his legs back, and it's Agent Venom.
All right. Well, so there's no Venom in this one, but there is Flash, and he has that fight. The fight, and even the stuff and what I really like, that silly, cheesy scene, but it's fun when he catches all the stuff. The fact that they really did that, the fact that that's an actual take.
Really?
Oh yeah, they
It
show
was
you
like take 68 or something. It's deep.
But they finally they finally got it, and so when he catches all the stuff, that's like an act. He actually did it. And
that probably explains why his eyes, because
he's
exhausted. No matter.
That's 2 a.m. He's been there all day.
He
threw it down afterwards and just left. He goes,
you got it.
He's like, I'm playing poker. Go find me later.
I put money on it. That
Leo.
He caught it one other time and got so excited. Fuck yeah! Dude,
that was it.
He didn't have it. He goes, fuck. So then this time he's like, and you could see it in his eyes when he catches it. Both of them, they
excited.
go, oh,
I did
they
it.
finish the take, and then they probably think, oh, fuck this, I'm out.
That was it.
Martini, we're out.
We're done. But it was all that stuff, and I think that the fight scene led to that, and it was cool how the Spidey senses, and the cheesy stuff that worked for me is when he punches and he looks, he goes,
whoa.
He goes, huh.
Yeah.
It's him like recognizing and understanding it and playing with the camera work, and that was the stuff to me that Raimi's style worked very well with.
Yeah.
And it was just certain things, and like Willem Dafoe when he like gets up, he goes, He breaks through the glass. There's some really ridiculous stuff going on.
Why does he automatically have like Goblin Glider poses? As soon as he's like, I've got the power to glide.
Yeah.
Like what a weird choice.
I love it. Back to formula. That's so great.
Apparently he did all of his own stunts, or like 90% of his own stunts.
I believe
so that's
it.
actually him gliding around and like obviously on a
You
street stuff.
cannot say, the one thing you cannot say about this performance is that he was phoning it in.
No,
Not
he
at
was
all.
in.
Not at all.
He was in.
And that's what I'm so excited for No Way Home is Dafoe.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I'm excited for
More
Molina,
so than
obviously.
Molina. To be real with you, I know people love Molina and what he did with Doc Ock, but for me, it was always Dafoe. Out of all of the villains,
set it up. He set it up.
So good, man.
It's funny for me, it's Hayden Church, and he literally doesn't get talked about. Like, my favorite one is the one that, like, where he's like, oh, right, he was in that. Like,
Because there were 75 people in that
that movie's like, hey, what if every villain shows
Everybody.
up?
Let's put
but
everyone
we
in
got
there.
that coming in No Way Home. We're going to be balancing a Spider-Verse and a Sinister Six, and we get the, like...
But MCU has shown that they
can do that.
know how to do that.
They know how
Right.
to do
They
it.
tried to do it in the third one, and there was no structure to it. But this one, the structure is there. The reasoning, the idea of the insanity of what the formula does, because this isn't a man. The same thing happens kind of to Doc Ock as well. But Osborn is not a evil dude.
Yeah.
He's just a determined businessman that gets this stuff into his head and he turns into a madman. And there is that stuff. I did like the idea of the fact that he looks at Peter like the son that he wanted.
Yeah,
Right,
that's one of the best dynamics in the film
love
is the
that.
father-son relationship.
Yeah.
Because that's very much from the comic books. Is he wanted a son like Peter, and Peter wanted a father figure, and Harry wanted a friend. So it's this beautiful
And
love
Harry
triangle.
also wanted his father, and that's the other
Right.
thing that's so interesting about it is that even Harry sees it, and that's what makes in 2 as well.
Yeah.
When the reveal happens of, oh my God, Peter, you're Spider-Man. It's like, A, he loved you like a father.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? B, that was my father. And C, what the fuck? He wanted you more than he wanted me. So it just builds his hate. It makes sense, which is why I thought that maybe that was going to be the main focus, is that instead of New Goblin, he would have gone to taking up the Green Mantle himself,
Right.
whatever else. But obviously they just went their own
Other way,
kind
right.
of direction. But
It's
They
funny.
wanted more toys, man. Can't be the same toy.
Well, before we get into we have a lot to talk about with this movie. There's tons of stuff that I think that worked, that didn't work, and we're going to talk about all of it. But you're talking about something that works, ladies and gentlemen. Butcher Box. I have been talking about it even when it wasn't time to talk about it, and I found out also that Winston is a big fan of Butcher Box. It is the best. Coy, have you tried Butcher Box?
I have
yet?
not, but if they would
so
like
good.
to, I'll talk all about Butcher Box. I like meats.
You need to, dude, because this is you got to be prepared for whatever life throws your way with high quality meat delivered right to your door. Wherever you need great tasting meal, you can trust Butcher Box in your corner. Butcher Box makes it easy. Each box has 9 to 11 pounds of meat of your choosing, and you can get stuff like 100% grass-fed and finished beef, which I've been eating. I got to tell you about. Dude, for my daughter, for her birthday, we made her these cheeseburgers out of this stuff.
Yeah.
My wife is making. I told you, she was making me meatballs for Sopranos.
Yep.
And it was this. It's this stuff, and it is no joke. But
Birthday
besides,
Butcher Box.
you have no idea. Free-range organic chicken, humanely raised pork, wild-caught lobster tails, and wild-caught Alaskan salmon, sugar-free bacon. There is no better feeling than knowing you can skip the grocery store because there's a variety of Butcher Box meat already waiting for you at the freezer. There are a lot of different places out there. You've done certain things. I've never had one like this, man. When I opened this stuff up, it was like Christmas. And the meat is so good. Yeah, go ahead, Winston.
It's one of those things. I found it completely randomly last year during the pandemic, and other than the fact that it allowed me to go exactly that to the grocery store less, I pay maybe a little bit more than I would monthly, like if I budget it out from the grocery store, but it doesn't even compare. It is so much better.
Cool, you have no idea.
I'm just jealous. This is just me jealous.
You
I'm
have no
silently
idea. I
jealous.
also got one for Brett, and Brett was like, "You weren't kidding." I'm like, "No, I'm not kidding." Because look, here's the deal: for a limited time, Butcher Box is going to give new members 2 pounds of free ground beef in every order for the life of your membership when you sign up. Imagine never having to shop for ground beef. Just like Winston just said, the deal is a no-brainer. I promise you, try this thing. And I'll tell you another reason why I want you guys to get it. Not only because you're going to love this beef, I want these guys to stick around forever. I love these dudes. Once signed up, you choose your box and delivery frequency. They offer 5 boxes. It's 4 curated box options as well as the popular custom box, so you get exactly what you and your family love. Butcher Box ships your order frozen at peak freshness and packed in a 100% recyclable box, and shipping is always free. You enjoy great tasting, high quality meat delivered right to your door. I have been doing the meatballs. I've been doing the burgers. I got to get the chicken. That's the next one. Chicken's the next one. I cannot wait. Winston and I highly, highly, highly endorse this. So go and get it. It is the best. I love the grass-fed stuff. My wife was the one to sell on, right? Because she's like, I don't know. When I'm like, this is good stuff. She opened it up. She's like, okay, grass-fed. And then we had it. I threw it on the grill, and she's like, okay. All right. Okay. You should have seen my family. My in-laws came in. Everybody came in. They're like, "Oh my God, these burgers!" I'm like, "Let me tell you about Butcher Box." And I'm like, I wasn't even
just off air.
I wasn't
doing
even
this
on
copy.
the air, and I was doing my own ad for this stuff. I am in love with Butcher Box, and this is your chance, everybody, to never have to shop for ground beef again. That is right. Butcher Box is going to give you guys free ground beef for life. Sign up at butcherbox.com. Trivia. butcherbox.com/trivia and get 2 pounds of ground beef free in every order for the life of your membership. Log on to butcherbox.com/trivia to claim this deal. I've got the link in the description. It's no joke. Go ahead, Winston.
Dude, I if anybody was following me on Instagram and when I was doing Whole30 during the pandemic, all of that food that y'all were seeing me make, I was using ButcherBox to do.
Oh,
it is so.
It's the best.
It is some of the most high quality meat. Apart from like going to like Gordon Ramsay's steak and like getting their top shelf.
Yeah,
whatever.
It's no joke.
It is so good.
It's
and
no joke.
I told you, you got to get the ribeyes.
I'm gonna get ribeyes. I'm gonna try all of it. I'm just like I fell in love when they told me about ButcherBox. When they said ButcherBox, I was like, well, you got me at meats, so let's see. And then they're like, and then they send it over, and I was expecting, because I've gotten boxes before where they
sent you a lot, huh?
Well, sometimes people send in stuff. It's like you get like there's like stuff on the side that you're never gonna use, and this is just meat. Yeah. And I'm like, and I'm like, honey, we struck it rich. And I'm like, I'm going through, and she's like, what's going on out there? And there were 2 boxes, and one of them was for Brett, and it took everything in me.
I felt
like The Sopranos, where it's just like, I'm like, I'm going to take my taste. But like at one point I was like, I'm not giving this guy anything. I was like, give him the box, you idiot. But
schmuck.
Everybody get it.
How many minutes in until we got Sopranos reference? It took a little longer than I expected. It took a little longer. I was really expecting that in the first half.
Every time. Well, this just worked out. Satriali's, they can't do it the way ButcherBox does it. I'll tell you what. So anyway, jumping back in, guys. But go to the link in the description. Get that. I promise you, after you get it, you will be thanking me. This is not one of those things where it's just like, oh, I don't know. I don't like to shave my balls. You have to shave your balls first of all. That's why you need to get Manscaped.
Respect.
But
okay, so we can mention it very briefly. Like I was the one telling y'all too when we were doing Blue Chew. I was like, look, trust me, do that. We're talking about the Manscaped. You gotta do the Manscaped. But trust me on ButcherBox, man. Like I am
it's
dead.
No joke.
Like what the fuck you think this is? Right? Like go get it.
Meatballs.
That's what I'm saying.
All right, look, jumping back into Spider-Man, we're going into this 2002 Sam Raimi version. Set all these records, did so much for the industry in general, and it paved the way for a lot of movies and the way things are done. And Sam Raimi obviously did. I mean, this is 3 movies that this guy directed at first, Spider-Man, and the first one set it off, and there were those moments of this love triangle that happens, and it also, what I really liked about it was it's because Peter can't get out of his own way. And he can't. All he's got to do is make the move, and even Harry tells him, "You never made a move, Pete."
Yeah.
So what do you want me to do? Because they have a relationship where he wasn't scumbagging him. He didn't tell him that he was going after.
That was the only scumbag thing about it. But you're right. He saw it. He kind of well, okay.
He should have told him. He should have said, "Dude, if you don't make your move, I'm going to."
He should have done that. But he also, if I remember correctly, he does scumbag him a little bit in the museum where he's like, "Do you know that the spiders can camouflage?"
Oh, right.
And then he goes,
Steals his line.
Hey, Larry J,
took his,
you know spiders can camouflage, and this is the biggest
He does
biker
steal his
slope in
line.
the world. I'm like, motherfucker.
Yeah, he stole his line.
I mean, he's a rich kid, and like it tracks for the characterization. I think it was great because it developed both characters simultaneously.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing that, like I said, the world is what works best for me. Like the world itself, like this is the best Bugle. This is the best. I mean, obviously it's the best Jonah because we're bringing Jonah back. I mean, that's the character of the movie for me. Like J.K. Simmons as Jonah Jameson is one of the best castings.
So answer
of
me
all time.
this, Mr. Expert. Yeah, and I stopped. I didn't want it to sound condescending, and I stopped it at the end.
Reads a lot of comic books.
Do this, you freaking geek. No.
Flash Thompson over here.
Mr. Expert, I'm asking you this because I don't understand what you think, and I don't think you know yet. J. Jonah Jameson, okay? So it would make sense that J. Jonah Jameson pops in through the multiverse. But it looks like we're getting him as if he's already part of this.
I think he's the first multiversal character. I think Far From Home takes place after Loki.
Okay.
So
you think he showed up?
Interesting.
I think the first character we've met from another universe, we've already met, and that's J.K. Simmons as Jonah. I think Jonah is from Sam Raimi's universe, and I think we're going to see that retroactively actually kicked off Phase 4 before we even knew it.
Before we knew it.
I think Mysterio did know about the multiverse, and he was fooling them by knowing more than
because he mentions it. He mentions it.
I think that Far From Home we're going to watch back and go like, whoa, they twist on a twist on a twist. So I think JK's been there.
Okay.
In theory, we already have. If you think about it, you've watched Loki, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So if you think about it, by the pure nature of them traveling through time, you have created variants. That's kind of what, the Ancient One was talking about when Bruce was like, I need to borrow this. And she was like, nah.
Right.
Like, you can't, you don't get it. You do that, you're going to start branching this off. So I wouldn't be surprised, especially considering they had said Far From Home is an epilogue to the Infinity Saga. So kind of the idea that we're pushing this forward, we've already started to create variants. It's just we got more of an explanation and a deep dive into it via Loki. So I don't actually disagree with that. I didn't think about that, but that's actually a really smart point.
All right, so
it also takes place 5 years after the snap for some people. You know what I mean? The chronology of it. And Loki is a show out of time. So we don't know when that could be, and we don't know when that threshold happens in canon.
And Wanda is happening almost immediately after as well.
Have you seen that side by side?
No.
There's a thing side by side where the last episode of Loki, it's like 41 minutes is when that threshold happens, and in WandaVision, 41 minutes is when like the thing crosses over and starts something. So they think that those two events happen simultaneously,
which would make sense if she's using chaos magic to crack everything open.
It's going to cause some problems.
He's over here screwing with the timeline at the same time. That would make sense.
It's interesting how it all going to play out, because if we talked about what we were going to say in the beginning of this show here about how this ties in and how it's going to start. You just opened that up with the J. Jonah Jameson thing. The question is now, how do you guys believe that it's going to tie in? This movie is going to tie in to the movies. And like now the Goblin. So obviously that the Goblin's going to show up and it's going to split into, instead of him going off and having this battle with Parker the way we see it, something's going to happen where it starts to tie in with all the Spider-Man, right? Is that kind of ish?
I got a weird theory. Do you got one? My weird theory is that Tom Holland goes into Sam Raimi's universe, not that they come into Tom Holland's. I don't think those characters come into the MCU. I think he goes into
that's
their
what
movies.
I meant.
But I think we're going to see Tom popping up in Sam
that movie.
Raimi. Yeah, but I don't think they're going to come to us until we meet Tom and Andrew, and it's going to be at this big moment where the universes are all colliding.
What I'm saying is but if he goes into that, it's almost like Back to the Future, right?
Right.
So where he goes into that moment, he's going to interrupt that timeline.
Yeah.
Where instead of the moment where Peter winds up killing Harry or killing Norman, he stops it and he's now gets involved with it. And there's got to be that moment, the three of them by the garbage can, right? Pointing at each other.
There must be. If they don't do that, we failed.
Yeah, they're definitely going to do
that. But I'm curious just from the standpoint of, obviously Norman dies, but then Doc Ock, the whole hello Peter, obviously they could have been screwing with us because it's not a clean cut. It might be to Toby, you know what I'm saying? But that was the whole thing, is that like Norman would have to have already been dead when Doc Ock finds out that Toby is
right, because he doesn't turn into Doc Ock until after Norman's dead.
Right, exactly. So that's the only thing that's a little confusing about
those two different timelines.
I think the Tom's popping into different worlds, not because that would make it cleaner. Right. So I think Doctor Strange, when the multiverse implodes, he gets jettisoned, and that causes him to leap through time.
Crazy
Even just talking about it casually.
But see, I think already what's about to, because I haven't watched this morning's What If yet, but I think
neither I.
But I think part of it too is that we are already getting the inkling that Strange Supreme in that What If episode is the one that's doing this spell. Because this Doctor Strange you see in the trailer is very off.
Yeah,
he's not. There's this weird, like, kind of sinister undertone.
You think this is the other guy?
I think that's the Strange Supreme that we saw in the What If. And so with that,
how do they explain that though? If you have to the casual viewer, right? Because I did see that episode. I'm like 3 or 4 behind, but I saw that episode. And if the casual viewer, if that was the reason why, and they're like, "Oh yeah, there's another Doctor Strange," and you're like, "What?" But you got to watch What If to figure it out.
I would go so far as to say it'll be very similar to like the way comics would do, where you'd be like, "Oh, and here comes Dormammu," and hey, for Spidey fans, if you don't know Dormammu, go look at
Amazing Spider-Man number 62.
Right. I think it's kind of a similar thing where they'll do enough of an intro of this Doctor Strange
that doesn't make you seem off.
Yeah, but not enough that it's actually enjoyable. Yeah. I think you're going to need to not be casual. I think that like casual fans are going to get enough.
But I think you'll be okay. I think because remember, regardless of the fact that we're in the MCU, there's still trilogies. If you just watch the 3 Iron Man films, you're going to be a little lost when it's like, hey, why is he having PTSD from the battle in New York?
Right.
But you can really just watch the 3 Iron Man films or the 3 Captain America films and for the most part be fine.
Sure.
I think you're gonna get the same thing where it's gonna be a fuller story if you have kept up with everything.
Yeah.
But I think they're gonna give us an independent movie where they explain who the villain is and why this is happening, and things will be okay.
So I slightly disagree in that. I think it's gonna be more like Endgame, where like if you haven't watched a bunch of movies, Endgame's like, who's that guy? What's a raccoon doing here? Like all of that stuff. And I think we might have moments where people that aren't invested are gonna be like,
and at that point, the MCU says, sorry, that's our TV show.
We've made $1 billion.
That's our TV show.
I think that's part of it. But again, you could just watch the 4 Avenger films and be okay.
Right.
Like, you know
but
what I'm
I don't
saying?
think you can watch Doctor Strange 2 without having seen Loki and WandaVision. Because you need the Scarlet Witch build, and that I think at this point Kevin Feige's just gonna be like, "Hey, we
that's
got
part
shows.
of that's our show. It all ties in.
You know what I mean? Like it's like you can watch a football game and watch the next football game, but you don't care about the Super Bowl unless you've like.
Well, they can risk that now.
Yeah, they can totally.
They can risk that now because they couldn't have done that because too inside baseball, if you will, right? But that they're asking.
We own baseball now.
More or less. What it is? They want you to be inside baseball now.
Yeah.
That's the point of it. They want everybody to be inside.
And that's the fun of us because we can explain it. Like what they've done is they've made
you guys can.
Well, you can explain it. Right. But what they've done is
I'll basically do what Harry did. You're like, hey, did you guys know this?
Can you explain? He just told me that spiders can camouflage.
All of you out there are my Mary Jane.
Yeah, we're going to be edited out of this whole episode. It's going to be Kristian monologuing about the things he heard from us.
We're not recording. This is I'm just taking notes, and I'm going to do a single episode of myself.
I sound so smart.
Kristian's going to come and have a Skybound put like Photoshop over our faces. So
Watch this. Hold on, wait. So, guys, just to let you know, welcome to the big thing. J. Jonah Jameson, I believe that he's actually going to be our first character in the multiverse. I came up with this theory the other day, and I was thinking about it. Yeah, I have red hair. All right.
There's just a Butcher Box logo like bouncing around my face. Like Butcher Box is just like bouncing right here. My friend's on. It's like Butcher Box.
You're a fillet.
Don't you say I'm fucking chicken.
Don't
you say I'm fucking chicken. I swear to God.
He's not coming back for episode 2. He's not coming back.
I didn't say nothing.
Oh, man.
I didn't say nothing.
I totally lost where we were because of that statement. I was like,
oh, my God.
So good.
Speaking of J. Jonah, that was the one thing that I did appreciate, and I think that they kept true to the comics. J. Jonah's a scumbag, but he's honorable as shit.
Defending Peter?
He would not say his name.
Wouldn't rat out his boy.
Love that moment.
I love
So glad you brought that up. That was one of my favorite moments of the whole thing when he comes in and he goes, where's Parker? Or whatever.
He's like, who's the photographer?
Right. Who's the photographer? And he's like, I don't know. Yeah, he's like, I don't know who he is because he's not like.
He mails him in.
That would change your opinion on him dramatically. And the fact that he doesn't rat, he's not a rat.
No.
He won't give him up. That made you go, okay, there's a lot in this because this is a shell.
And that's why you get like solo Jonah comics. Like every so often they'll just do a Jonah issue, and you're like, this guy's incredible because he hates Spider-Man for honorable-ish reasons, but he's such a good dude while being a monster.
He really is.
So that's going to be so important with whatever they do with Far From Home or No Way Home.
And who better than J.K. Simmons?
I mean, come
to
on,
do that?
like what a perfect.
Yeah.
But they've got to make sure they establish that. Otherwise, it's going to like kind of castrate the new Jonah.
He can't just be a cartoon character who just chomps on cigars and hates Spider-Man. There's got to be stuff to it because that moment was. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah,
that's my favorite moments of the entire movie. I remember when I rewatched it, I go, yeah, man, 100%.
And the funny thing is it went over my head as a kid, but watching it, I agree with you. That was a pause the movie. Holy shit. Yeah. Like, and that's one of the things that, like you said, that's why they have Jonah comics. That's why he's so involved. It's one of those weird things where he is a prick, but he also looks at Peter. Like, there's so many father figures in Peter's life. And I know Jonah drives him up the fucking wall, but him, Connors, Osborn, all of these men have kind of plugged in as his surrogate dad, and they're just shitty for different reasons.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So, but you know, like,
I'm trying to.
It's like an episode of Ted Lasso, just a lot of father issues.
Some bad extra work in this, though. I'll tell you that.
Oh man, that girl that comes in and goes, "It's Spider-Man." Yeah. That was almost as bad as the Dark Knight extra that goes, "No more dead cops."
Yeah,
like every superhero movie needs one bad.
But that girl though is Raimi's fault.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean, he focuses right in on her, and he goes, and it's like that. That's not like someone in the back like doing one of these things. Like overacting the thing. Like this is some of these. He put a close up on her. It's probably someone's daughter or something too.
I like Lucy Lawless though. That was fun.
What was she in?
She was the one that was like 8 extra arms. That sounds hot. Like the punk girl.
Yeah.
That's Xena Warrior Princess, man.
And my wife did say this though. She's like, how late 90s, early 2000s this is that Macy Gray
is singing. I know, right?
Yeah.
I thought the same thing. Yeah. But well, damn.
Extra work, Lucy Lawless, Sam Raimi.
Yeah.
I'm getting there.
The push in on extras, the weird one.
There it is. Okay, got you.
Butcher
so when also, I told you this before, the rosemary thyme breakfast sausage. Get that shit. It's so good. Clearly, I actually get
This
Butcher
episode
Box.
is truly sponsored by Butcher Box.
It really is. The only thing that I didn't really like is when they're talking to the New Yorkers, if it had been like an expose for the news, it literally pulled me out of the movie where it was just like, hey man, what do you think about Spider-Man?
I love New York.
You know what I'm saying? Like if you don't do that, but you keep this like where you're at, it reminds me of the end of Avengers, where all the different people are doing interviews like Captain America saved my life. Like, I don't know.
Right.
Like,
Well, it was also the same thing at the end. It was like, you mess with Spidey, you mess with all of us.
Well,
And it's
okay,
like,
I thought you would love that.
Of course I did, but it's still.
Tony Soprano.
This is New York.
And I said to my daughter, I go, nobody messes with New York, right? but it's cheesy as hell and it's unnecessary.
And it only gets more into
do
movie.
it. The second one, then all of a sudden,
God,
it's like,
that train scene that everyone loves.
First they lift him up like Jesus. Then when Doc Ock comes in, he goes, "Hey, you leave him alone."
Yeah, exactly. Well, my daughter, who is an angel, is like, she's just she was really disturbed when the kids were like his choice of save the kids, save Mary Jane, and she's like, Dad, what's he gonna do? And I'm like,
oh man,
and I'm like, you gotta watch. She's like, tell me. She's like, I can't handle it.
Yo, what is so difficult hearing stories about your kid is that, again, the way you talk about her and the way she acts, she is so grown, and then I forget that she is a child.
She's 9 years old.
So she was like, Dad, what is he gonna do? The kids or Mary Jane? Like, you need to tell me now.
And then when he's just falling, she's just like going like this, and after he saves her both, she goes.
And you know,
that's
those
the moment
moments
you're supposed to have.
And that's how Sam Raimi, you can tell Sam Raimi knows Spider-Man. That scene is him knowing Spider-Man more than some other directors have. But it's just a matter of his sensibilities conflicting with, like, Spidey's an archetype.
Great call.
So it's Spidey's archetype is how you interpret him.
Yep.
Sam Raimi's a bit cheesier on his Spidey than I am. So he gets that Silver Age flavor. He gets that 60s and 70s Spider-Man.
Dude.
Whereas I like the 2000 Spider-Man, which is really interesting because they kept trying to make Ultimate Spider-Man. And did you notice you read Ultimate Spider-Man, right? You know how that they always show the Einstein poster in his bedroom? That's in Sam Raimi's because this was in 2002. So they literally modeled his bedroom after Ultimate Spider-Man.
That's a wonderful point, though,
to me.
No matter what you think about Sam Raimi, if you thought his style is too cheesy for it, you go back, it's dated. You cannot argue that he doesn't care about Spider-Man.
He knows what he's
talking about. Like he definitely loved the character, and I would be mad at myself if I didn't mention my favorite wrestler of all time.
Bonesaw is ready. Bonesaw is ready.
I love it, and it's just like, hey, freak show, I got you for 3 minutes. It's so good.
Well, and it's also it's so funny also just seeing how society had evolved in that regard, in that like Peter's like big taunt to him was like, your husband give you that outfit? And I was like, whoa.
It's funny,
homophobia, man.
It's funny that you say that because I thought the same thing. I'm like, that's not a line.
You can't say that now.
2002 Spider-Man's a bit of a prick.
No, you're not gonna get that. But like, you remember what his I'm sure you know, but like I know this, who the original name was of the wrestler is Crusher Hogan.
Yeah.
Because the reason I know that is
Hulk was supposed to be in it.
No.
Oh.
The name of the wrestler
in the comics
was Crusher Hogan because my daughter, again, she listened to. I think it's one of the main reasons she wanted to watch this. She listened to. There's like an audio version of it, and Stan Lee does all the.
Oh, that's incredible.
And so I've listened to this 1,000 times. And he goes, and the wrestler was Crusher Hogan, and it's like. It's so good. It's like, because with great power comes great responsibility.
Oh, I love that man.
It's the whole. He narrates the whole thing.
I love the Macy Gray Stan Lee cameo because it's just as short as the X-Men cameo, where Stan Lee's just on the beach. Like in the beginning, they didn't have him say anything. It was just like Stan Lee existing, and this one's like, I grab a child and rescue, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Dude,
I love that little blip.
It's pretty funny because like all of us just haven't been in the industry. It's like watching that person that like you go back and watch the 4th episode of Community, and I'm just like some dude that clearly doesn't know where the fuck my class is. I just walk back and forth because that was the direction. You're an extra Extra. They don't give a shit. They don't have
care.
agency.
Crossing.
They're like,
Crossing.
cross there. But if you give a story to the extras, it's kind of that weird thing where it's just like, bruh.
It's
Well,
just-
What are you
the
doing?
same thing with Stan Lee, where at first he's just on the beach. He's like, oh man, this is Spider-Man. And then all of a sudden he's like, and then there was this crazy thing, and I was a FedEx delivery guy, and I don't even know what the fuck happened.
It was great. I mean, like to see
He's
him
the
in
Watcher,
it-
man. He's everywhere that's important.
That's true. But there was a lot I think that we covered inside of this is that wrestling scene we talked about in depth because it leads to Ben and all that in his transformation, his relationship with Aunt May, who I thought she was great.
I agree.
And very different from Marissa Tomei, who I think is I liked the change up with Marissa Tomei, making Aunt May like
Well, because he's younger, and it'd be kind of strange, and it always was kind of strange when he's like, I'm 15, and my aunt is always having a heart attack. Like,
Right.
it's a played out thing, whereas Aunt Bay allows for a certain amount of, like, fun and Tony
Totally.
and, like, all those things. And he's going to have the first, like, Aunt May knows who he is. Like, we're going to live in a world where Tom Holland is exposed to Aunt May, and that's good to have a different dynamic.
Yeah, I'm so curious on how they're going to make it all play because watching this movie back again, I wound up really enjoying myself, to be honest. Like, I think that because I went in knowing the Raimi cheese is part of it. It's part of it. It's like but there are some like this, there are serious moments, and there are those moments where I think Tobey Maguire does a great job.
Even
Hold on, sorry about that, but like I think that the way I said that, not just some moments, but I think some moments that he does a great job of doing being emotional and bringing in that those moments.
Well, across the board, in the sense that, like, I feel like the camp part that they put in tends to be a lot of the actual superheroing.
Yeah.
But then when you look at moments like, honestly, it's a pretty dark moment, but when Norman realizes that Peter is Spider-Man, he takes off from Thanksgiving, and he's having that conversation with Harry by the elevator, and he's like, get what you want out of her and just move on. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, holy shit, we're seeing that he really is kind of that creep in that regard.
Well, and it's also the stuff messing with his brain.
But also, exactly, the stuff messing with his brain, but the fact that you look, again, at just, like, that ugly dynamic sometimes we have with, like, our fathers and stuff, like our parents that we have and whatnot and all that, then Mary Jane being like, way to defend me, like, you know what I mean? There's
they come from broken families,
right?
Yeah, the two of them, right?
All three technically, because what, Peter doesn't even have his
Peter
parents.
doesn't have his parents,
Mary Jane's being abused.
he had loving people that raised him, where he was the one that had loving people. They don't. They're missing that in their lives.
And Mary Jane's got her aunt, much like Peter does. Aunt Anna is the one that introduces Aunt May to Peter. Like, that's the dynamic there. But her parents are talked about way later in the comics as being abusive, but they jumpstart that here, which is a great dynamic.
I agree.
And then Harry doesn't have a family, really.
But it also then explains, which is, again, just great character work in that regard. So I give Raimi credit for that. By establishing that, we all know, like, a lot of people know that stuff is generational. So if you see it in your household, then you find a partner that is also that way. And if you think about it, Harry's not very good to her.
Why didn't you wear the black dress?
Exactly. Why didn't you wear the black one? It's like, because this one's nice. I don't.
Yeah.
You know?
By the way, people like react to things like kind of shrug the shoulders. Like he turns people into skeletons. Like, he comes in and it was a great moment. It was a lot of fun. But, like, just seeing him, how all that worked out, because I remember the Green Goblin as a kid, and it wasn't the costume. It wasn't a costume, right? It was like his body was.
It depends on the iteration.
Yeah, it's generally a costume, but it's like a goblin, like latex. Like,
Is
it
that
looks
what it
way
is?
cooler.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're gonna do in No Way Home.
It's a little more think like Scarecrow.
Okay, because they can't go with that.
No.
Thing.
It's like a latex, really terrifying. And they built it for Sam Raimi's. They actually built
with the hat and everything too.
like an animatronic.
Why
thing.
did they use it?
Because it was too it wasn't cost productive.
Really?
Like, it kept tearing itself apart.
Yeah, they have different technology now and make it look a lot better, because like it looks so goofy. When he comes walking in, he throws those punches and he looks. It's so goofy.
But the thing you're thinking of is Ultimate Spider-Man. He's like the Hulk.
Goblin.
He turns into a full-size goblin. So you might be thinking of that, and that's kind of.
I'm always thinking like the Jester one where he's got like the.
Yeah, that's a mask.
Right, exactly. So, like, again, if you're thinking of
My
the animated series, again, is the easiest iteration to think about. But exactly that. It was very weird that his mouth was just stuck open.
Yeah.
Just
and you could see his eyes and his mouth move in the goblin helmet.
Here's my biggest flaw in plot. Okay, he gasses Spider-Man. The whole time he's trying to figure out who he is. He's got him passed out.
He didn't take his mask
Takes his
off.
mask off.
Yeah.
Like, the whole time he's trying to, it's like he's just laying there. He had him gassed. Why didn't he take his mask off?
Carried him around.
My guess is,
doing?
my only guess is, because I agree with you, is that at the time, remember, he's just trying to turn him to his side.
Yeah.
So maybe he's like, I don't give a shit who you are now because I'm just trying to, like, get you to come with me.
This guy is a ruthless businessman and ruthless and is going to find
doesn't
every
get all
little
the
Every manipulation
information.
tactic.
because he would say you would have him go, if he doesn't join me, I'm going to hunt him down. And he figures it out later, and he looks at me and goes, back to formula.
So you're a big Spidey fan like I am.
Yeah.
What did you, I've never felt like Tobey Maguire was actually Peter Parker.
No.
I felt like Andrew Garfield was. I
Yes.
certainly think Tom Holland is.
Yes.
But even rewatching this, I kept being like, oh, that's a guy with brown hair. Like, it never felt like Peter to me. People love him.
That's the one thing. He has emotional moments that work, but for the most part, there is, in the way that we say Defoe did not phone it in.
Yeah.
And Kirsten Dunst and James Franco did not phone it. I feel like Toby's phoning it in the whole time in my opinion.
I feel like he's acting, not Spider-Manning, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like he
Yes.
likes I think he read the script, he wanted to work with Sam Raimi, and he liked the concept, but I feel like he never cared about Spider-Man. I think our bar has moved. Like, Hugh Jackman is Wolverine, Ryan Reynolds is Deadpool, so now I expect that of my Spider-Man.
It feels, I agree with you, it feels very much like he just read, okay, nerd.
Yeah.
What do nerds do?
And with his, like...
I'm just going to talk to Raimi. It's like, oh, Mary, can I take your picture for the yearbook? Is that
Yeah.
okay?
It almost feels like a cliche.
You're
Like,
you're so beautiful. Like it's very phoned in that regard. Like I don't feel depth. I feel depth with everyone else, and I do in those emotional moments.
He pops in the moments where he's being a dick.
that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
It's Molly's game.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
And that's not Spider-Man. Spider-Man feels bad when he's a dick because he has some angry tendencies. He shouldn't feel more empowered. And instead, it's like the Big Bang Theory. It's a bunch of people pretending to be nerds that are profiting off of our culture instead of actually being nerds. It's like Community is written by nerds for nerds about
Shots
nerds.
fired at Big Bang.
And Big Bang,
I feel the same
dude,
way, but I let him have it. I let him have it.
But you agree, like Big Bang Theory is written by not nerds about nerds
Making
to profit
fun of
off them, and they're punching down at them. Whereas Community is like, this is how we are, and it's embodying them.
Right.
I feel like Tobey Maguire is the Big Bang Theory of Peter Parker.
Wow.
That's actually a
Hot take.
really good fucking metaphor.
It bothers me, man.
Hot take. Yeah. Well. Either way. So how do you feel then of him coming back?
I'm excited
does.
for the fans.
Yeah.
Like, I'm excited for the moment. It's going to be great.
But that's not.
I hope he dies.
Yeah.
I think he's going to get Uncle Ben. I think they might make that the moment that makes Spider-Man a little stronger.
If they go into the Spider-Verse though, because that was supposed to be the Peter Parker that died that
Right,
Miles
that's what I
first
think they're
met. If Toby makes the adjustment to be more of that Spider-Man,
Yeah.
I actually think it'll be fine.
I think he could too. Like, he's got the emotionality.
I think he can too, and I think he's also very aware. I mean, his acting obviously, like,
Where's
he's
he
always
been?
good.
Playing cards, man.
Yeah. Where's he been?
He's producing a lot. He's got
He's been
more
producing
money
a
than
lot.
God.
Yeah.
Like, he's set.
Well, that's what I meant.
Just hanging out with
acting-wise,
Leo.
which is probably exactly why he's going to do this, because he
Yeah.
wanted to do the fourth movie. He didn't.
Right.
He was signed up to do the fourth movie, so to come back and do it. And Garfield, I agree with you guys. I think Garfield was a great Spider-Man.
You just never got a script.
I liked the first movie. Then we'll get into it. The second movie's terrible.
I love their dynamic in the second one. Though.
Fine, but the
But
movie's
like,
terrible.
I mean, yeah,
The
we'll
movie's
get there.
terrible.
But
We'll get there.
But I do feel like Garfield was a much better Spider-Man. It just got really, really inundated with Sony trying to sell stuff.
And it was
like
really
Bing.
and it was really soon.
Right.
And they were going back into the origin. But we'll get into that for sure. But this going into this one.
Well, when did 3 dropped in 09?
3 dropped in
Amazing
07.
No, it was 09 because I was. Are you sure? Because
100%. Spider-Man 3.
I
think it was 07.
Are you okay? You might be right. I
know why I know. But
okay.
But
Okay. The reason why I'm confused is because I went to I was studying abroad in Japan in 09, and there was a bunch of movies I missed, and that was a movie I actually never saw in theaters.
Oh, no
I
way.
only saw Spider-Man 3 because everybody kept
2007.
lampooning it. It was 07. What the hell is
I graduated in
wrong with
06.
my
That's why I knew, because it was
Yeah.
my first year out of high school.
I told a joke about it.
We both have landmark
Yeah,
moments.
I had told a joke about it at the Comedy Store, and that was one of the last ones.
Like I knew I missed Star Trek because again 09 I was in Japan, but maybe it was just that like being in college we didn't really have a car to get off campus, so
Yeah,
I
that
was
would
just
do it.
I was just kind of like, you know what, it's not that
Yeah.
big of a deal. Like if everybody says it's this bad, I just won't go see it.
But it was
So
like 2010 when Amazing came out, right? Amazing Spider-Man was
11.
Like 11.
It
So
was-
like
it was
4
11.
years
It was
later,
right
so
away.
quick.
It was really
Right
close.
away,
And,
yeah.
and
Another origin.
it wasn't only that it was 2007 to 2011. There was a lot of drama with the
Yeah.
2004. That movie was going to happen. That movie
Yeah.
was, and the deal was supposed to run out. That's what we'll get into all this when we get into it. But
Right.
like the reason why they were able to make that movie is because the deal ran out with Raimi. So,
Yeah.
but Raimi makes these 3 movies. He starts with this first one. This movie does so much business, so much hype. People can. I mean, the turnaround from the first movie was 2002.
Insane.
The second movie was 2004.
Yeah.
So that's quick. Most movies at that time were like 3-year shots.
Minimum.
The 2 years. The Star Wars. Remember when Star Wars was doing it for the new trilogy? They had to like put that shit into motion like 2 years, you know?
Yeah.
And some people now look back and go, maybe they should have waited 3. But like the 2002 to 2004 and then 2007, which was 3 years, but the 2 years in between to get Spider-Man 1 to transfer into Spider-Man 2 and looking what they did well in this movie also with Spider-Man, I thought was that balance of what he had to do with being a hero and then still having to try to have his life. And how tired he was, and the things I liked that stuff that they did there. I thought that.
Oh, and that's so important to the character
Yeah.
because Spider-Man's one of those rare heroes that's as important as Peter as he is a Spider-Man. Like that mask comes off. That's why there's so many images of like the half face, him walking away from the dumpster with the suit in the background, which they do well in 2. There's so much about that exhaustion for his character that I do feel like Tobey captures. But when he's not in a state of emotional distress, I don't feel like he's Spider-Man. So it's like I need Tobey to be at a 9, or I'm like, I'm not buying it.
No,
and that's a tricky feeling.
1,000% agree with you, and I think that to me was the problem. It's very clear that Tobey didn't grow up like that.
Right.
He's always kind of been the guy. And so that is the difference. So his neutral doesn't work.
And I love it in like, the experience of it. Like, do you remember? Like, what was your theatrical experience? Because I lost my mind watching this in theaters because it was the first of its own thing.
I absolutely loved it.
I think I saw this like 8 or 9 times.
I saw this movie a few times in the theaters myself, and
sure.
I was more excited about Attack of the Clones when, for obvious reasons.
Right.
But I wound up seeing and enjoying Spider-Man more.
Yeah.
When I saw in the theater the experience of it, because I think the difference was we had gotten Phantom Menace. We had people. It was kind of at that point 3 years had passed, and you're like, and with this movie, this is the first time that was what Tobey has that nobody else will have. This is the first real Spider-Man on live action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that felt like an event. This is also one of the first summer event movies that I can remember. For me, not in life. I know Jaws, etc. But like as a teenager, this really changed my summer. This was everything.
This was a massive, massive film, and it took. And like I said, it was not an easy feat to take the stuff away from Star Wars, and that's what this movie did. And it's like this was for what Batman '89 was for Batman. This movie was for Spider-Man. It was absolutely that. And I think that the difference was that Tobey Maguire was never questioned for being cast, though. Like, you might look now, but like the way Michael Keaton was.
Yeah. Oh no,
Michael
not nearly
Keaton.
that.
I mean, Michael Keaton.
I think Spider-Man fans were just happy to be there.
Yeah, what's that?
Wasn't Keaton a comedian at the time?
Well, he was a comedian. I mean, he started in stand-up comedy, but he was known for, Gung Ho and Mr. Mom and all this other stuff. He wasn't known for being Batman. I mean, Bill Murray, though, was one of the main people that they were looking at. Nobody cared, but it was because it was Michael Keaton. They're like, Michael Keaton? And look how that turned out.
Right.
Never really got that. You never heard that with Tobey Maguire.
But I always feel like Spider-Man fans are just happy to be here. Like I think they were just like, we're getting a movie. It's cool. Toby's here. Like fine. Like, we're not gonna be mad at it.
It didn't throw it off to where it was like that guy doesn't fit.
Yeah.
I don't
feel like we got Spider-Man fan entitlement until Garfield. I think the entitlement came because we had 3 good Tobys, or 2.5 good Tobys.
Yeah, and it was also because and I think that what Tom Holland did though out of the 3 of them was he's the only one that was to me the closest in age.
Yes.
Because Maguire's like 25 or 26 at the time.
He's pretty old in this, and so was Garfield. Garfield, I just saw the thing. I want to say
close to 30.
Yeah, Tobey was like 27.
And he looks it.
Garfield was like 25. They keep getting younger.
But Garfield though looks younger.
Right.
They look younger each movie, except Tom Holland actually is younger.
That's the funniest. But my girlfriend was just talking because the Dear Evan Hansen thing, the same. So it's like, bro, you're supposed to be 16. You look damn near 40. Like, it's kind of the same with.
They just throw a polo on him. They're like, she's a teenager.
Yeah. But like Toby, same thing. Toby looked like he was almost in his 30s.
Yeah.
But he's supposed to play high school.
And maybe this would be an adult.
Andrew Garfield was 28 when he played.
Wow. He looked younger to me. He looked too old, but not 10 years too old.
So then I probably got in reverse. I think you were right. I think Tobey Maguire was 25 then. Then Garfield must have been 28, and then Tom Holland was 21 or
Either way,
something like that, right?
But
I think he was 19. Playing 16, and I think I bought it.
And you buy it, and I think that it all plays out. But either way, the most exciting part of all of this is because when it used to be is but you're never going to see these guys you're never going to be able to see them all together. And because of the multiverse, it's crazy. You can, and it's going to play into when we get to it the multiverse, the Into the Spider-Verse, which I am fascinated about because I don't know how they're going to tie the animated. And you're
I think
convinced.
it's coming in. I don't know in what context. I don't know if they're going to be a full-on Who Framed Roger Rabbit moment where there's going to be an animated Spider-Man, but I guarantee that ties in.
I would venture a guess that the only Spider-Man that comes in animated might be Spider-Ham. If there's
Because you could do
cameo.
that. I love that idea. Because
And
you could do
then-
that Roger Rabbit thing.
Do you think that's going to lose audience members though? You putting Spider-Ham? You don't think so?
Think about how many animated sequences there are in Loki. There's a lot of animation mixed
Yeah, but
with Loki.
not everybody. Loki was a hit with people who watched it on Disney Plus.
Sure.
But it's
I
you're, when you venture off of Disney Plus into
Right.
the series, you're throwing it into the mainstream.
Right.
Like the Disney Plus, I know, I get it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
mainstream, but it's also what we always talk about is if you sign up for Disney Plus, whether it's for Marvel, Star Wars, whatever, you're not paying anything extra than you would have when it comes on. You either watch it or you don't.
Right.
My wife doesn't watch Loki. Okay, but if I take her to the movie theater to watch a movie, and I'll tell you right now that if Spider-Ham shows up, my wife is out.
But I'll tell you this. I
love Spider-Ham. I
know,
loved him in the movie.
But I'll venture this guess though. I don't think it's going to be a situation where Spider-Ham is like then throughout the film and all the Spider-Men are
Just like a
rolling
little
together.
cameo type
It's literally like if we're going through these different universes, Spider-Ham shows up and be like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And then like that's
like
it.
almost like Howard the Duck.
I could see a multiverse like when Doctor Strange is throwing Tom Holland through multiverses.
Yeah.
I could see a full-on Peter B. Parker though. I could see it like flash by.
But I could see that. I could also literally see that's how we also get a live action Miles, that they've just kept the casting super quiet, and then because we've already seen Aaron in his uncle Aaron.
Yeah, the best
Home-
Donald Glover. Dude, that cameo is the best. That's actually better than Deadpool meta.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
Do you
Donald
think
Glover.
Miles is going to show up in this?
I think
wouldn't
Miles
be
shows up
surprised.
after this.
I wouldn't be surprised if not in it. I can also see it maybe as a post-credit scene.
Did you see my tweet yesterday about like this? So this basically opens up Spider-Man 2099 movie, a Miles movie, a Scarlet Spider movie, a Spider-Man 4 from Sam Raimi, a Spider-Man 3 from Andrew Garfield. This opens up everything, and Sony wants that.
It's a great point. But
It opens up Spider-Gwen.
So first of all, I didn't think about that. So let's tie it back into this. First of all, this movie. So if Tobey Maguire does not die,
Spider-Man 4 could happen.
and with Raimi back in the fold,
That's my thought.
Is that partially maybe part of his deal? Is look, I never got to make Spider-Man 4. And now I'll do Doctor Strange, and if we tie it all in and make it work inside the MCU, then I want to do my 4 with Tobey.
I think this is exactly what got Sony to come back to the table. I think that Feige was like, all right, I got to show my hand right now.
I got an idea.
This is what we want to do. We're opening up the multiverse for Marvel in general, right? We need Spider-Man.
Right.
But we obviously know this is something that for you. So you've already set it up with Into the Spider-Verse. If you let us play and we can all play in the sandbox together, you can have ad infinitum Spider-Man that you want to do that aren't MCU, and we just have Holland, and we occasionally see some of them coming through.
I
That's
would
how you
love
get Miles
to be part
simultaneously.
of that meeting where the guys, you see like the Sony execs are like, do you understand any of that? Nah.
He just said we could do more Spider-Man.
I understand. I didn't understand
box.
a damn
Butcher
word
box.
of it. But it's fine. We'll let him do his thing, and we'll profit.
That's what happened, and that's what's happening.
Yeah.
I guarantee you. I mean,
I would put money on it.
Because Madam Web, they talked about Spider-Gwen's coming. I think all of this, you can literally do 10 movies after.
So does
No Way
Venom
Home.
show up in this one?
I think so.
You think so?
Interesting. Maybe. I honestly, just the direction they're going, with Venom, I haven't seen
Second one.
have you
Let There Be
seen
Carnage?
Carnage? Have you seen it already? I'm assuming.
Maybe.
Okay, so it's this.
Are you not allowed to talk about
Try
it?
not to give anything.
Are you not allowed to
Does this
talk
air
about it?
after?
This airs on next week.
Okay, this drops. So Venom drops Friday. This Friday.
so
Okay,
that's
so I
cool.
can
So you can talk
Great.
about correct.
There are elements that make me think that Tom Hardy wants it to be involved, and there are things that happen in the movie that allow for that to
Got
the
it.
point where I think Sony's like, well, we've been trying to play separate. Let's put it all together.
Makes
and I
sense.
think that's
and
coming.
at this point they're playing the battle lines are no longer battle lines
Exactly.
when they were back when
because
Venom
the
first
Sony
started.
meeting happened, and then Venom changed, and it's not a coincidence.
Let's figure it all out.
Also, Tom Hardy's a story credit in this movie.
Oh,
Tom
wow.
Hardy's got more control. This is Tom Hardy's first theatrical writing credit. He's got a
It's
Taboo
Andy
writing
Serkis
credit.
directs, yeah?
Yeah.
And did you like it?
I did. It's insane.
Is it better than the first one? Because I didn't like the first one.
If you liked the craziness of the first one, this
Yeah.
movie's for you. It's the lobster tank scene for like 90 minutes. It's insane.
Oh, I don't like that.
It's not going to be for you.
That was my least.
I loved it.
But I love Andy Serkis.
It's like
I love Andy Serkis.
It's like doing drugs. Like it's great. It's like Fear and Loathing and Venom.
Great. What an endorsement on a Spider-Man. On a
Spider-Man.
Coy Andrew.
Drugs.
It's like doing drugs. It's great.
Good drugs.
Yeah.
No, it's literally like watching.
So let me tell you about Butcher Box.
Hunter S. Thompson's Venom Let There Be Carnage.
That's
it's a full gonzo 90 minutes. They put their fucking gas pedal down, they go for 90 minutes. It's insane.
I want to see it. As another one, yet another screening. I passed away.
It's got an Avengers level post-credit scene too.
You can start sending. I'll go.
And you should go and talk about it on here.
The post-credit scene's Avengers level, and I think Sony is throwing way more into a shared universe than they had been.
That's good.
And I do think that what No Way Home is going to do is open up an Avengers level thing with all Spider-Mans. Like I think we're getting an interdimensional Sinister Six. I think we're getting a live-action Spider-Verse. I think we're getting a potential Spider-Man 4 and Spider-Man 3 because Garfield wants it, Tobey wants it, seemingly, and Sam Raimi certainly wants it. I think that could all happen.
Do you think that Tobey's not going to die?
I think he could die and we get a Spider-Man 4. Because he could die in this universe and still get his own movie.
You're gonna really, you got to really get people the
multiversal.
Yeah, but no, but what I'm saying, the audience, you got to make sure because not everybody. A fan asked me this not too long ago. Like, do you think you're gonna lose people with the multiverse angle, right? Because it's like that's a lot.
Yeah,
it's a lot to handle. But I understand why Marvel's going there at this point. It's like they've done everything that they needed to. Let's just throw it all out there and let's try to do some stuff.
At this point, it's kind of like, what else can you do?
What else can you do? 100%.
You opened up these floodgates so hard with the wrapping of the Infinity Saga with the stones, which almost in a lot of ways seems more complex at times, but they've made it work.
Yeah.
So you have nothing left to do other than to be like, well, there's actually a whole breadth of characters and shenanigans.
Into the Spider-Verse is 100 minutes. They explain multiverse to kids.
That's true. Yeah. I need to go back and watch that one. I loved it when I saw it. So a couple questions about the first movie and tying into this. So Kirsten Dunst, we see her or no?
In No Way Home? Yeah.
You think so? Okay.
You think?
No.
All right.
I don't think we see her.
Yeah, I don't think we see James Franco for a lot of different reasons, but also because of the fact that it's
too much.
It's too much. I think Goblin, Doc Ock for sure. The three Spiderman. Spiderman. Yeah, we'll see.
I'd put 80% on MJ, 100 or 95% on Toby, and then obviously 100% on Doc Ock.
Yeah.
My out of left fields that I think we see is Paul Giamatti.
No,
I just think like because hold on,
that sigh is how everyone's gonna feel.
So wait, because I mean, I guess
Jamie Foxx is coming back,
right? I guess we don't technically need him because you already have Goblin, Octopus,
Electro.
You have Electro. You have Shocker. You have Vulture. And then it depends if you bring back Mysterio or if but who's the sixth? That's whether or not Mysterio is leading this through subterfuge because he's not dead.
Joe Manganiello?
I mean,
does he show up? You think?
I don't think he does here, but if they do a Spider-Verse movie, I think he does because he's such a nerd.
But there's so much in this movie, the first movie, that was a fun rewatch. But we also, as we go back and we talk about this film though, as much as you guys had fun watching it when you were kids, it doesn't hold up for you. Is that right?
It dropped from an A to a B+. Okay. It dropped like 2 letter grades for me.
I would say it drops from like an A to a B. It's still a good movie, but like it became a B movie seeing the camp.
There's a lot of
9.2 to now an 8.5. Like it's a substantial drop for me.
It's so weird, and I don't know if it's maybe because of the Clone Wars stuff that I've been doing, but like I watched this and watching it with my oldest who was enjoying it a lot. I watched it with different eyes. I definitely saw all of the cheese. I definitely saw the B movie stuff because that's kind of what Raimi's style is a lot of times, to throw that B movie stuff in there. But I really wound up enjoying this movie. I always liked it, and I remember going back to watch it again and going, this time it's probably gonna be like, oh, this is some cheesy shit. I did feel that way, but it didn't bother me.
I like reading Silver Age comics for that reason, but I have to be in that headspace. So like when I read like 60s comics, I'm like, oh, I know they're going to say zoinks. Like I got to be in that space.
I think I was in the headspace and I found myself enjoying it. My rating and ranking didn't change for it. Do I think it holds up to the kind of movies that are made today in this genre? No, I don't. I think they're just, they wouldn't be approached this particular way. Even the movies like Shazam that are kind of fun and they're different. the way that it's.
That's a great example. I think if they make Spider-Man 4, it's going to be Amblin toned. It'll be Shazam toned. It'll be, and next year is the 60th anniversary of Spider-Man. It's the 20th anniversary of Spider-Man 1 because they made that on the 40th anniversary.
You're going to confuse the shit out of people.
You really are.
1962 plus 40 years is 02 plus 20 years is 2022.
But you're going to confuse people who imagine you don't see No Way Home. Right, and then you hear Spider-Man 4 is coming out with Tobey Maguire. You'd be like, "What the hell year is it?"
Yeah,
like,
but I think Marvel's doing that now. I think Sony's been doing that.
I'm not telling you I don't think it's gonna happen. Yeah, I'm just saying it's the same way. It's very different, but yet the same. When I saw Solo, and Darth Maul pops up at the end,
sure,
and I turned to Ken, I go, "This is gonna confuse a lot of people."
Well, see, I think that what the issue is what they should have done. And then I got to run pretty soon.
Yeah.
What they should have done, in all honesty, is they should have changed the naming of the MCU Spider-Man. They should have maybe gone with Ultimate or something like that, because at least then you could differentiate. At least with Garfield, it's the Amazing Spider-Man. So you go, it's Amazing Spider-Man 3. You can go, oh, I see what you're doing there.
Right. Yeah.
If you
Spectacular Spider-Man, Peter Parker Spider-Man.
Something. You know what I mean?
Well, they didn't know. I guess they didn't know at the time. But look, this was just the first movie. So
we got a lot more to talk about, y'all.
And a lot of these conversations, this is what you guys have to be prepared for, is that every one of the movies that we talk about, they're going to keep linking back to No Way Home because that's why we're doing these rewatches. There was a lot of stuff we picked up for this one. I think there's a lot of stuff we'll pick up from the second one. God help us. We have to watch the third one. There's a lot that we're going to watch all of them. We're watching all three. then we're going to watch Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, and then we will be watching Spider-Verse to cap it off before we get to the end.
Get a palate cleanser.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, get
yeah,
yourself
it's so clean
or a good
after.
steak at Butcher Box. Guys, thank you for joining us. Coy Andrew. Follow him at Coy Andrew. Follow the Swaggy Blur. What do you guys got going on? Winston, start with you.
Yeah, of course. Blurred's in the Hood every Tuesday and Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific. Definitely come hang out with me and Jay Washington. It's just a good time. We're fucking wild over there. It's not for kids. I'm also
apparently this show isn't today.
I asked, you went for it.
Yeah. I just assumed this was SCN. And you could just say whatever. And then I've been hosting the Citizen app. So if you want to know what naked man is chasing people with a machete, I'm your guy. So I'll be on there sometime this week. I realize it's airing after we tape it. So come hang out on Citizen.
The voice of California's Florida man. You gotta rip those Florida men on the streets.
What you got, Coy?
You can find me on YouTube at my own channel at Coy Jandro. Also on TikTok, trying to grow that TikTok, which is a whole thing at Coy Jandro there as well. Just type Coy Jandro in your Google box, and I'm a lot of places. I got a podcast, I got a YouTube show, and I want to say a B is in the top third of comic book movies. So as much as we said some negative, I want to give the context to Sam Raimi fans.
100%.
A B is still very high. So much love to the film.
With all the acknowledgement that this show it set trends.
It set a precedent. It didn't
really
set a trend. It set a foundation. The bedrock of comic movies. Thank you to X-Men and Sam Raimi. But this director's less problematic.
Well, thank you guys so very much. Everything that you guys have done. You can get this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere that podcasts are found. Please do that. If you're not checking out, Winston just mentioned SEN on Twitch every day, 10 to 12 on Twitch on the SEN or Schmodown Twitch channel rather. Going to be doing Spider-Man 2. We'll be doing that next week, so check us out there. We are still doing the rewatches on Sith Council leading up to Book of Boba Fett, which was announced end of December as that's dropping. So thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. Find all those links in the description, and there's this thing called Butcher Box. Check that out as well. All right, guys. Peace out.